What's up guys, Crazy here, back into Borderlands 3, and today we're going to go over an updated version of the infamous flak crit build. This has been recently nerfed, that is true, but because of new functionalities as well as new buffs to certain items and weapons, this became even stronger than ever before. And yes, you can more than melt a boss with a single magazine size of just 18 bullets, as long as you have the proper build as well as the proper items. So you know, we're gonna jump right in with everything you need to know, and if you enjoyed this video, a rating on it would definitely be super appreciated. But I'm going to start with a disclaimer over here, and that is for the fact that this build that I'm about to show you definitely excels in just melting bosses as fast as possible, though later into this video I'm going to show you a variant of it that also kinda excels against groups of enemies, such as for example in areas like Circle of Slaughter or anything of that sort. But yeah, let's just jump in with the actual build itself, and then I'm going to go over the items, because all of these are now even more important than ever before. So the flak crit build still uses the same old functionalities. You're still going to have the centerpiece fade away over here, you're still going to use Gorillas in the Mist, even though this has been severely nerfed lately, as well as the Unblinking Eye. But yeah, I'm going to start things off with a passive over here, because this became even more important than in the previous patches. So Persistence Hunter, gun damage as well as action skill duration is going to be increased. In this case 12% for the gun damage and the action skill duration plus 45%. And this is why this is so important. It kind of makes up for the fact that Gorillas in the Mist has been reduced to only 5 seconds from 8 seconds, which was how it was previously, and the critical hit damage was also reduced by half from 50% to 25%. So a big nerf, but we can make up for that with raw damage from other weapons. For now, all you need to know is that you should start with this thing over here and then move on to the actual Stalker tree. And here is where a few things remained, but others also have been changed. So the way I went with this is I of course invested in Furious Attacks and overclocked abilities. The Furious Attacks, this is a no-brainer. This just provides straight out gun damage stacks as well as handling for each bullet that you shoot into the enemy. 2% per stack, as well as the handling almost 5% per stack, up to 10 maximum for 4 seconds. From this point on, I just went in with overclocked, so flak gains increased fire rate, and he also gains some after reloading, 10% after reloading and 10% for the fire rate. Then I went in with 4 points into Eager to Impress. This isn't going to benefit you in any way for boss killing, as you're not really killing any enemies to take advantage of this, but it is required because otherwise you can't progress further down the tree. So I had to invest 4 points over here. But if you're going with the variant that does go against groups of enemies, this is going to be very important for that really nice flak kill cooldown time, -1 second for every enemy that you kill, or when your pet kills an enemy you get a -2 second for your ability, which in this case is going to be fade away, and you can use it way faster with this passive over here. But otherwise I went in with Turn Tail and Run. This is also very important. This makes it so that when you're moving you constantly regenerate health and gain damage reduction. Meanwhile, if you're standing still you get gun damage as well as fire rate, so it's a no-brainer, just like this one over here. But then I've invested a couple of points over here so I could move later down the tree, in this case Hidden Machine. When an enemy has no target or is attacking a different target, flak deals increased damage against them, which is 30% at the maximum of 5 points. So this actually synergizes perfectly with the fade away ability, as in the enemy won't see you, and because he doesn't see you and have you as a target, you're going to get that free 30% damage increase over everything you have so far. We also went with the Fast and the Furious, again a no-brainer, because if you're over half HP, your gun damage and movement speed is increased, especially the gun damage by 25%, which is a huge increase for just 3 points, and the movement speed 10% is also very welcomed. And of course, finally in the Stalker's tree we have the Power Inside, which increases your damage by 25% when you activate a skill, in this case of course the fade away ability. But if you are also at full health, you're going to get double that amount, so instead of like 25% damage increase, you're going to have 50% damage increase. So suffice to say that you're going to want to play with this build almost always at full HP, so you can always take advantage of all of these buffs over here that give you a ton of damage bonuses. But from here on is where the Hunter tree comes into play, and of course we have a few staple abilities over here that have not changed. These include the Leave No Trace, critical hit scores give you 1 ammo back to your magazine with a chance of 36%, which is really good. To progress down the line you will also need like 5 points, so I've invested these into Interplanetary Stalker, and this is actually good if you want to go for a build that focuses on taking down groups of enemies. So it depends if you're going with the boss killer variant or with the enemy killer variant, a case in which you're going to want to take the Interplanetary Stalker. Then I went in with the head count. This is also very important. It reduces your action skill cooldown with each critical hit that you score, and since you're going to score so many critical hits, you're almost always going to use that fade away ability with this thing. Now here is where the paths can diverge a little bit, and it depends on what you want to pick. In this case I went with Hunter's Eye because this synergizes with a class mod that I have, which makes it so that bosses are now treated as humans, beasts and robotics for flex hunt skill. So this is where this comes into play. If you're fighting, for example, humans, you gain critical damage. If you're fighting against robots, you're gaining armor, and if you're fighting against beasts, you're getting damage reduction. But otherwise I've also invested 4 points into Ambush Predator, so weapon handling and critical hit damage are increased while there are no enemies nearby. And the reason I've added this is especially against bosses like the Grave Ward. Since he is so far away, he is out of range, you can just take him down with a sniper rifle, and this is going to give you some benefits to that as long as you're staying a little bit in the back and he doesn't get a chance to summon his minions. So in this case that is why I went with this variant. But yeah, these three over here, it's a matter of preference. If you're going against a solo boss, if you're going against groups of enemies, yeah, you're going to adapt depending on the situation. The next one, which is also important, is the Two Fang, and this one adds extra projectiles per shot with a 25% chance. So like every 1 in 4 bullets is going to be an extra one, which is definitely extremely helpful. But let's go over the actual weapons, and the main one I'm using here to take down the bosses, and this is of course the Liura, and this is the sniper rifle. If you didn't know this, sniper rifles got a huge amount of buffs in the new update, about 20 to 25% damage increase, aiming and all that kind of good stuff, and Liura was already overpowered to begin with, so this new update just made it even stronger than ever before, and it synergizes just amazingly with this flak crit build. So you can get this by simply completing the bounty missions for 0, otherwise you can get it at random from bosses such as, for example, the Grave Ward, Tyrene, or even loot tanks. But the one that you'll want the most is probably this one with fire damage, though I believe other elementals can work as well. In my case I got a very powerful one with 662 elemental damage, and also the damage over here comes in pairs, so 788 times 2, and I believe that this is the best setup for this type of weapon, having it times 2 over here in the damage category. So yeah, it deals a lot more damage than the regular Liura. Now the next few things over here are also very important, and there's a reason why I have chosen these. I'm going to go over the class mod over here really quickly, and there's a couple of class mods over here that you can definitely go ahead and use. I've used 2 alternatives over here that definitely work perfectly fine. In this case you can choose either the Bounty Hunter or the Deadeye, it just depends on the stats that you get on it. But let's go over the Bounty Hunter first because this is the one that I'm using right now. So Flak has a 3% chance to activate any purchased hunt kill skill when dealing gun damage. Bosses are now treated as humans, beasts and robotics for Flak's hunt skills, but most of all I got it because of the increased action skill cooldown rate, 31%. This drastically reduces the cooldown of my fade away ability, especially since there's a couple of other items over here that also help me out with that. So 31% and also a 31% SMG damage if I'm going with an SMG build. That also comes with some very powerful passives over here. The 35% additional damage against enemies above 75% health, though because I'm melting enemies so fast I didn't get to benefit from this too much. The other one is the artifact, and this is in fact a little bit more important than you actually think, not because of its passives over there, but because of its bonus ability at the bottom. While suffering an elemental effect, it increases your damage with the same element. So for example, in this case, the damage boost is 183, which means that if you set, for example, yourself on fire, you gain fire elemental damage by 183%, and this is where the loadout comes into play. The incendiary damage on it is going to be increased by 183% while you are on fire and while you have this artifact upon you. For that, of course, you will need to set yourself on fire, and you can do that in a couple of ways. One of them is by using one of these fire grenades, though I definitely recommend using something like this so you don't accidentally kill yourself. Just set yourself on fire, that is all that is important, and while you are on fire, use the Lyura with the fadeaway ability and just melt through the boss, and that will deal a huge amount of damage. The next one is, of course, Brawler's Ward on action skill, and action skill cooldown rate is increased by 20% for a short time. So check this out. I have a 20% cooldown reduction from Brawler's Ward, then I have another 31% reduction from the Bounty Hunter, and finally we also have the static charge with another 21% action skill cooldown rate reduction. And this is even before taking into account the head count passive, which reduces my action skill cooldown when doing critical hits. And yeah, this is where it all comes into play. I'm basically able to spam the fadeaway ability with this build even better than ever before because I have all of these three abilities, and I can more than make up for the loss of damage with the buff that was added to Lyura. But yeah, this is the updated version of the Flak crit build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, a thumbs up on it would be super appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next one.